Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. New York City, 2025. Madison Parker checked the address on her phone for the third time. West 73rd Street, apartment 12B. This was definitely it. The bass from what sounded like a Drake remix pounded through the walls of the Upper West Side building, and she could see colorful lights flashing through the windows of the penthouse level. Perfect. Her best friend Jessica had said this would be the party of the year to celebrate her promotion at the marketing firm. Too bad Madison absolutely despised parties, she muttered to herself, smoothing down her little black dress in the elevator mirror. 2 hours, you smile, congratulate Jess, and then you're back home with Netflix and your cat. At 28, Madison was the type of person who preferred a quiet evening with a good book and herbal tea to any kind of social gathering, but Jessica had been relentless, and Madison had finally caved. The elevator climbed to the penthouse, and Madison took a deep breath as the doors opened. The apartment door was slightly ajar, music and laughter spilling into the hallway. She stepped inside and immediately knew something was wrong. First, there was no sign of Jessica anywhere. Second, instead of the usual marketing crowd, she was surrounded by people in expensive suits discussing merger acquisitions and portfolio diversification. Third, there was a man in the corner wearing what looked like a $5,000 Armani suit, gesturing animatedly about international expansion strategies. "Oh, darn," Madison whispered, pulling out her phone. A text from Jessica glowed on the screen. "Mads, change of plans. Boss canceled the party. We're doing Monday night at the office instead. Rain check. Zoxo." Madison felt heat flood her cheeks. She was at the wrong party. She tried to back toward the door discreetly, but the penthouse was packed. Designer-clad people laughed loudly, crystal glasses clinked, and she found herself being pushed deeper into the crowd. "Excuse me, sorry." She attempted to weave through a group of men discussing stock options, but bumped into someone carrying a tray of what looked like caviar canapés. "Watch it," the server called out, but it was too late. Madison stumbled backward, her heels catching on the polished hardwood floor. She was going down, and there was nothing she could do to stop it, except she didn't hit the ground. Strong, steady arms caught her, pulling her against a solid chest. She looked up and found herself staring into the most incredible green eyes she'd ever seen. Dark hair, perfectly disheveled in that effortless way that probably took 20 minutes to achieve, a jawline that could cut glass, and a smile that made her stomach do actual somersaults. "You okay?" he asked, his voice deep with just a hint of a Boston accent. Madison couldn't form words. She was completely mesmerized by those eyes, by the way he was still holding her, by the intoxicating scent of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her head spin. She started, but suddenly someone bumped into them from behind, pushing her forward and him backward. "Sorry," a drunk woman in designer heels giggled, stumbling past them. The collision sent Madison pressing against Ethan's chest and him stepping back against the wall to steady them both. They were suddenly much closer, her hands splayed against his shirt, his arms tightening around her waist to keep her from falling again. "This is crazy," Madison whispered, looking up at him. "Completely insane," he agreed, his voice rough, but neither of them moved away. The music seemed to fade around them. Madison found herself studying his face, the way his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way he was looking at her like she was something miraculous. "I don't even know your name," she said softly. "Ethan," he replied, his thumb tracing a small circle on her back. "And you are?" "Madison," she breathed, and somehow they were even closer now. "Madison," he repeated, like he was testing how it sounded. "That's a beautiful name." She laughed, a breathy sound. "You're just saying that because—" But her words were cut off when he leaned down and kissed her. It was soft, tentative, like a question, and Madison, surprising herself completely, kissed him back. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but when she didn't pull away, it deepened. Her hands fisted in his shirt, and she kissed him back with an intensity that shocked her. She'd never been kissed like this, like she was precious and devastating all at once. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Madison stared at him with wide eyes, unable to believe what had just happened. She stammered, panic suddenly flooding her system. "I have to go." "Wait," he said, reaching for her hand. "Madison, don't go." But Madison was already pushing through the crowd, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She didn't stop until she reached the elevator, and only when the doors closed did she allow herself to process what had just happened. She had just kissed a complete stranger at the wrong party, and it had been the most incredible kiss of her entire life. Back in the penthouse, Ethan Mitchell stood in the middle of his living room, hands still extended toward the spot where the mysterious woman had disappeared. His business partner and best friend, Connor, appeared at his elbow with a knowing grin. "Dude, who was that?" Connor asked, taking a sip of his whiskey. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, still tasting her on his lips. "I have absolutely no idea," he admitted, a slow smile spreading across his face. "But I'm going to find out." The taste of her kiss lingered, sweet and intoxicating. Tomorrow, he decided, he would start looking for the woman who had literally fallen into his arms and then disappeared like Cinderella. He just hoped she hadn't left a glass slipper behind, because he was pretty sure he was already falling for her. The next morning, Madison woke up with a start, her heart racing as the memories of the previous night flooded back. She touched her lips reflexively, still feeling the phantom pressure of that incredible kiss. "Get a grip, Madison," she muttered to herself, rolling out of bed in her small Brooklyn apartment. It was just a kiss. A really, really good kiss, but still just a kiss. She shuffled to the kitchen, grateful for the familiar routine of making coffee. Her tabby cat, Hemingway, wound around her legs, purring for attention and breakfast. "At least you didn't witness my complete humiliation last night, Ham," she said, scratching behind his ears. "Though I suppose kissing a stranger isn't the worst thing I could have done." The coffee machine gurgled to life, and Madison tried to push the memories away. She had a freelance graphic design project due today for a small nonprofit, and she couldn't afford to be distracted by mysterious green eyes and perfect lips. The doorbell rang. Madison frowned, glancing at the clock on her microwave. 9:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Who could possibly be visiting this early? She padded to the door in her oversized NYU sweatshirt and fuzzy slippers. Checking the peephole, a delivery guy stood outside holding a large manila envelope. "Madison Parker?" he asked when she opened the door. "Yes, special delivery. Please sign here." Madison scrawled her signature, tipped the guy with the crumpled $5 bill from her coffee table, and closed the door, staring at the envelope. Her name was written in elegant script across the front with no return address. She tore it open and pulled out a thick stack of papers. The letterhead made her blood run cold. Mitchell and Associates, corporate law and business consulting. Her eyes scanned the first page, and her coffee mug slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. Temporary girlfriend agreement. This contract is between Ethan Mitchell, hereafter referred to as the client, and Madison Parker, hereafter referred to as the contractor, for the provision of girlfriend services for a period of 3 months. Terms and conditions. 1. The contractor agrees to accompany the client to all social and business functions as requested. The contractor will present herself as the client's girlfriend in all public settings. The contractor will maintain appropriate physical affection in public, hand-holding, brief kisses, etc. 4. Compensation, $18 per month. All expenses, clothing, meals, travel will be covered by the client. 6. A $10,000 signing bonus will be provided upon contract execution. Madison's hands shook as she read through the detailed contract. It was completely insane. Who did this guy think he was? And how had he even found her address? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm outside. Please don't slam the door in my face." "Ethan." Madison rushed to the window and peered down at the street. There he was, standing next to a sleek black Tesla, looking devastatingly handsome in dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater. He was holding 2 coffee cups and what looked like a bag from her favorite bakery. The doorbell rang again. Madison looked down at her sweatshirt, which had a hole near the left shoulder, and her mismatched socks. Of course, he would show up when she looked like she'd been hit by a truck. She buzzed him up, then spent the next 3 minutes frantically trying to make herself look presentable. She managed to run a brush through her hair and swapped the holey sweatshirt for a clean NYU hoodie before the knock came. When she opened the door, Ethan's smile was warm and slightly nervous. "Good morning," he said. "Are you completely out of your mind?" Madison asked, holding up the contract. "Probably," Ethan admitted, offering her one of the coffee cups. "But I brought peace offerings, vanilla latte, 2 sugars, and blueberry scones from Sullivan Street Bakery." Madison stared at him. "How could you possibly know my coffee order?" "I'm very good at reading people, and you look like a vanilla latte girl." Ethan's smile turned slightly sheepish. "Also, I may have asked your friend Jessica. You talked to Jessica? Madison's voice rose an octave. How did you even find Jessica? LinkedIn. She works at Morrison Marketing, right? I know the CEO. Ethan stepped closer, and Madison caught that same intoxicating scent from the night before. May I come in? I promise I'm not a stalker. Madison reluctantly stepped aside, gesturing to her small living room. Ethan looked around, taking in the colorful artwork on the walls, the overflowing bookshelves, and Hemingway, who was eyeing him suspiciously from his perch on the windowsill. Nice place, Ethan said, settling onto her couch. Very you. You don't know me well enough to say what's very me, Madison replied. But she accepted the coffee. It was perfect. Maybe not. But I'd like to. Ethan's expression grew serious. Madison, I know this seems crazy. Crazy? Madison laughed, waving the contract. You're offering me $18,000 a month to pretend to be your girlfriend. That's not crazy. That's completely unhinged, is it? Ethan leaned forward. You kissed me back last night. That wasn't pretend. Heat flooded Madison's cheeks. That was a mistake, she said. Was it? His voice dropped lower. More intimate. Because it felt pretty real to me. Madison's treacherous body responded to his proximity. Her pulse racing. This was exactly why she needed to stay away from him. The man was clearly dangerous to her sanity. Look, Mr. Mitchell. Ethan, he corrected. Ethan, she said reluctantly. I don't know what kind of woman you think I am, but I'm not for hire. Even for $18,000 a month. Madison's mouth fell open. Did you just plus expenses, clothing, meals, travel, and the signing bonus? Ethan's expression softened slightly. I think you're a talented graphic designer who's been struggling to make ends meet since the nonprofit sector doesn't pay well. I think you've been living on ramen and store-brand coffee for the past month. And I think you're exactly 3 weeks away from having to give up your apartment. Madison's face went white. How could you possibly know? Research. I'm very thorough. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not trying to insult you, Madison. I'm trying to help both of us. Help? Madison laughed bitterly. By offering to pay me to be your arm candy? By offering you a way out of your financial problems, and me a way out of mine. Despite herself, Madison found herself curious. What kind of problems? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly vulnerable. My grandmother is sick, really sick. She has maybe 6 months left, and her biggest worry is that I'm going to end up alone. She keeps trying to set me up with daughters of her friends, and she's threatening to sell the family business to my cousin Derek if I don't find someone soon. Madison blinked. So, you want me to lie to a dying woman? I want you to help me give her some peace in her final months, and in return, I'll solve your money problems. Ethan's green eyes were intense, pleading. Look, I know it sounds mercenary, but my grandmother built that business from nothing. If Derek gets his hands on it, he'll destroy everything she worked for. Madison studied his face, seeing genuine pain there. Why me? You could have any woman in New York. Because, Ethan said quietly, when I held you last night, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Because you kissed me back like you meant it, and because you're the first woman I've met who didn't immediately ask about my net worth. Madison felt her resolve wavering. $18,000 a month would change her life completely. She could pay off her student loans, help her mom with the medical bills, maybe even save enough to start her own design studio. This is insane, she said finally. Insane enough to work, Ethan replied. What do you say, Madison? Will you be my fake girlfriend? Madison looked at the contract in her hands, then back at the most gorgeous man she'd ever seen, offering her more money than she'd ever dreamed of. I need time to think about it, she said. Ethan smiled. I'll give you 24 hours. But Madison, he stood up, moving closer until she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Last night wasn't fake, and neither will be the next 3 months. As he walked to the door, Madison called out, Why are you so sure I'll say yes? Ethan turned back, his smile devastating. Because you need the money, and because you felt what I felt last night. He paused at the door. I'll be waiting for your call. As soon as he left, Madison slumped against the door, her heart pounding. She looked down at Hemingway, who was watching her with judgmental yellow eyes. Don't look at me like that, she told the cat. $18,000. Him, that's enough to change everything. But as she stared at the contract, she couldn't shake the feeling that money might be the least complicated part of this arrangement. What scared her most was how much she wanted to say yes. 23 hours and 47 minutes later, Madison stood outside the imposing glass building that housed Mitchell and Associates, clutching the signed contract in her sweaty palms. She had changed clothes 4 times before settling on a navy dress and blazer, professional enough to meet a potential employer, casual enough not to look like she was trying too hard. The problem was, she still had no idea which one this was. "You can do this," she whispered to herself as she entered the sleek lobby. 3 months, $18,000 a month, enough to change your entire life. The receptionist, a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of Vogue, smiled at her. "You must be Madison. Mr. Mitchell is expecting you." Madison nodded, not trusting her voice. Her palms were sweating so much, she was worried about damaging the contract. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, Ethan was waiting for her, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent. "You came," he said, and she caught something that might have been relief in his voice. "I'm here," Madison replied, holding out the contract, signed and notarized. Ethan took the papers, his fingers brushing hers briefly. The contact sent a familiar jolt through her system, and she quickly pulled her hand away. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I know this isn't easy." "When do we start?" Madison asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan's smile was almost apologetic. "How do you feel about meeting my grandmother? She's expecting us for lunch today." Madison's voice cracked, but I thought I'd have more time to prepare. "Madison." Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. "It's going to be okay. I promise." As they walked toward his office, Madison couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to step into something much more complicated than a simple business arrangement. She just hoped she was ready for whatever came next. The drive to Eleanor Mitchell's Upper East Side townhouse was simultaneously the longest and shortest 20 minutes of Madison's life. She sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's Tesla, trying to absorb everything he was telling her about his grandmother, while fighting the urge to jump out at the next red light. "She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12, Ethan explained, navigating through Manhattan traffic with practiced ease. "She's formidable. Built the family investment firm from scratch in the 1,970 seconds, when women weren't exactly welcomed on Wall Street." "And she's really sick?" Madison asked, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor said she has maybe 6 months. But knowing my grandmother, she'll probably outlive us all through sheer stubbornness." Madison studied his profile, noting the pain he was trying to hide. "You really love her." "She's the only family I have left," Ethan said quietly. "Well, except for my cousin Derek, but he's more like a parasitic infection than family." Despite her nerves, Madison smiled. "Tell me about Derek." "Derek is everything wrong with trust fund babies rolled into one perfectly groomed package. He's been waiting for Grandma Ellie to die so he can inherit half the business and run it into the ground. He's already pitched ideas about turning our investment firm into some kind of cryptocurrency gambling operation. And your grandmother would leave the business to him? If I don't prove I'm settling down, yeah, she has this old-fashioned notion that a man needs a good woman to keep him grounded." Ethan glanced at her. "Enter you." Madison felt a flutter of panic. "Ethan, what if she sees right through me? What if she asks questions I can't answer? Then we'll figure it out together." Ethan reached over and squeezed her hand. "Madison, breathe. You're going to be fine." The contact sent warmth shooting up her arm, and she had to remind herself this was all pretend, professional, a business arrangement. So why did her heart skip a beat every time he touched her? "Tell me more about her," Madison said, pulling her hand away before she could do something stupid like intertwine their fingers. "She's brilliant, ruthless when she needs to be, but she has a soft spot for strays. She's funded about 12 scholarships for underprivileged kids, though she'd never admit it publicly. She speaks 4 languages, plays piano better than most professionals, and makes the best apple pie in New York. She sounds incredible." "She is. She's also going to grill you like you're applying for a top-secret security clearance." Ethan's smile was apologetic. "Fair warning." They pulled up in front of an elegant brownstone that probably cost more than Madison would make in several lifetimes. Ethan handed his keys to a valet because of course Eleanor Mitchell had a valet, and offered Madison his arm. "Ready?" he asked. "Absolutely not," Madison replied. But she took his arm anyway. The front door opened before they could knock, revealing a woman in her mid-70 seconds who somehow managed to look both regal and welcoming. Eleanor Mitchell was petite but commanding, with silver hair styled in a perfect chignon and intelligent blue eyes that missed nothing. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Madison's rent, but her smile was warm and genuine. "Ethan, darling," she said, embracing him carefully. "You're late." Traffic. Grandma Ellie. You know how it is. Ethan's entire demeanor had shifted, becoming more relaxed and affectionate. I'd like you to meet Madison Parker. Madison, this is my grandmother, Eleanor Mitchell. Madison felt frozen under the older woman's assessing gaze. This was it, the moment of truth. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Mitchell, Madison said, hoping her voice sounded steadier than it felt. Ethan talks about you constantly, does he? Eleanor's eyes twinkled with amusement. And what exactly does he say? Madison felt panic rising in her throat. What was she supposed to say? How could she possibly convince this sharp, intelligent woman that she was genuinely in love with Ethan? He says you're the strongest person he knows. Madison heard herself saying that you built something incredible from nothing and that you taught him everything important about integrity and hard work. He says you're the reason he is who he is today. Eleanor's expression softened slightly. Flattery will get you everywhere, dear. Come, let's have some tea. The interior of the townhouse was like stepping into a museum. Priceless artwork adorned the walls, and every piece of furniture looked like it belonged in Architectural Digest. But despite the opulence, it felt warm and lived in, like a real home. They settled in a sun-drenched sitting room overlooking a private garden. Eleanor poured tea from an elaborate silver service, while Madison tried not to think about how much the delicate china probably cost. So, Madison, Eleanor said, handing her a cup. Tell me about yourself. What do you do? I'm a graphic designer, Madison replied, accepting the tea gratefully. I work mostly with nonprofits and small businesses. Right now, I'm helping redesign the brand identity for a literacy program in Brooklyn. How noble, and how did you and my grandson meet? Madison's mind went blank. They hadn't discussed this. Should she tell the truth about the wrong party? Make up something else? We met at a party, Ethan said smoothly. His hand finding Madison's knee under the table, Madison quite literally fell into my arms. How romantic, Eleanor said dryly. And how long have you been dating? About a month, Madison said. Praying. That was the right answer. I see. And what do you think of my grandson? This was the real test. Madison looked at Ethan, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I think he's Madison paused, choosing her words carefully. He's not what I expected. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. How so? When I first met him, I thought he was just another privileged businessman. Rich, handsome, probably arrogant. Madison felt Ethan's hand tighten slightly on her knee. But he's not. He's thoughtful and kind. He notices things, like how I take my coffee or that I get nervous in crowds. He works 18-hour days but still calls you every Sunday. He pretends to be all business, but I've seen him stop to pet every dog on the street. Eleanor was studying her intently. And what do you see in him now? Madison met Ethan's eyes, and suddenly the words came easily. I see someone who would move heaven and earth for the people he loves. Someone who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders but never complains. Someone who makes me laugh, even when I'm having the worst day. The room fell silent. Eleanor set down her teacup with a soft clink. Interesting, she murmured. Ethan, would you be a dear and check on lunch? I'd like to speak with Madison alone for a moment. Ethan looked like he wanted to protest, but Madison gave him a small nod. Whatever this was, she could handle it. When Ethan left, Eleanor settled back in her chair and fixed Madison with a penetrating stare. You're in love with him, she said bluntly. Madison nearly choked on her tea. I'm sorry? You're in love with my grandson. The question is whether you know it yet. Mrs. Mitchell. Eleanor, please, and don't bother denying it. I've been watching people for 75 years, dear. I know the signs. Eleanor's smile was knowing. The way you look at him, the way you speak about him. You're either the world's most talented actress, or you're head over heels and trying very hard not to be. Madison felt the blood drain from her face. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Madison could answer, Ethan returned, looking slightly anxious. Everything okay in here? Perfect, Eleanor said, her smile not wavering. I was just getting to know Madison better. She's lovely, Ethan. Don't let this one get away. Over lunch, Madison found herself relaxing. Despite the circumstances, Eleanor regaled them with stories about building her business in the 1,970 seconds, the challenges she'd faced as a woman in a male-dominated industry, and the satisfaction of proving her doubters wrong. The secret to success, Eleanor said, cutting into her salmon, is understanding that everything worthwhile requires risk, whether it's building a business, falling in love, or simply deciding to be vulnerable with another human being. Madison felt like the words were directed at her specifically. Speaking of risk, Eleanor continued, I have a proposition for you both. Ethan and Madison exchanged glances. The Hamptons house has been sitting empty all season. Why don't you spend next weekend there? Just the two of you. I think it would be good for you to have some time alone together. Grandma Ellie, Ethan started, but Eleanor held up a hand. It's not a suggestion, darling. It's a requirement. If you're serious about this relationship, you need to invest in it properly. Madison felt panic rising again. A weekend alone with Ethan in the Hamptons. She wasn't sure her heart could handle it. That sounds wonderful, she heard herself saying. Eleanor's smile was triumphant. Excellent. I'll have Mrs. Chen prepare the house. As they said their goodbyes, Eleanor pulled Madison aside. A word of advice, dear, she said quietly. Don't let fear make your decisions for you. Sometimes the best things in life come disguised as the riskiest. Walking back to the car, Madison felt like she was in a daze. She'd somehow survived lunch with Eleanor Mitchell. But she had a feeling the real test was just beginning. You were amazing in there, Ethan said, as they drove back toward her apartment. Was I? Madison stared out the window at the city rushing past. I felt like I was going to throw up the entire time. You couldn't tell. You were perfect. Ethan's voice was warm. Thank you for doing this. For helping me. I know it's not easy. Madison turned to look at him, studying his profile in the afternoon light. Ethan, can I ask you something? Anything? What happens when this is over? When the 3 months are up and your grandmother is gone? Ethan finished quietly. I don't know. I guess we'll figure it out when we get there. But as they drove through the city, Madison couldn't shake Eleanor's words. She was in love with Ethan. The realization hit her like a physical blow, leaving her breathless and terrified. She was in love with a man who was paying her to pretend to love him, and she had no idea what she was going to do about it. That evening, Madison sat in her apartment staring at her phone. She had 3 missed calls from Jessica, 2 texts from her mother, and a voicemail from her landlord that she was too scared to listen to. But all she could think about was the way Ethan had looked at her when she described what she saw in him. Like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't all pretend for him either. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Thank you for today. You were incredible. Looking forward to the Hamptons this weekend. Madison stared at the message, her heart racing. A weekend alone with Ethan, away from the city, away from the pretense, away from everything that kept her grounded. She typed back, looking forward to it too. But as she hit send, she couldn't help but wonder if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life, or if maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what she needed to do. Friday afternoon found Madison standing in her tiny apartment, staring at her open suitcase with mounting panic. What exactly did one pack for a fake romantic weekend in the Hamptons? Her usual wardrobe of thrift store finds and Target basics suddenly seemed woefully inadequate for whatever world she was about to enter. Okay, she said to her cat, who was lounging on her bed, watching her with typical feline judgment. Help me out here. Casual beach chic, sophisticated East Coast elegance, or full-on imposter syndrome panic attack. Hemingway yawned and rolled over, clearly unimpressed with her crisis. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Leaving the office in 20 minutes. Should I pick you up at 4? She typed back. Yes, I'll be ready. Even though she was nowhere near ready, she'd spent the last hour trying on different outfits, and none of them felt right. Everything was either too casual for what she imagined Hampton's parties to be like, or too fancy for what she could pull off convincingly. Her phone rang. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. Please tell me you're calling with moral support, and not to point out how insane this whole situation is, Madison said by way of greeting. Both, actually, Jessica replied cheerfully. I still can't believe you're fake dating Ethan Mitchell. Do you know how many women in this city would kill for that contract? It's not real, Jess. It's a business arrangement. A business arrangement that involves spending the weekend in a multi-million-dollar Hamptons house with one of the most eligible bachelors in New York. Madison, honey, you need to relax and enjoy this. What if I can't pull it off? What if his family friends see right through me? Madison, Jessica's voice was firm. Stop. You're overthinking this. Just be yourself. That's what made him choose you in the first place. After Jessica hung up, Madison took a deep breath and made a decision. She pulled out her favorite sundress, a vintage navy blue number with small white flowers that she'd found at a consignment shop in Brooklyn. It was simple, comfortable, and made her feel like herself. She paired it with a white cardigan and her only pair of nice sandals. If Ethan wanted authenticity, he was going to get it. When the Tesla pulled up outside her building, Madison grabbed her suitcase and headed downstairs. Ethan was waiting by the car, looking like he'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren advertisement in khaki shorts and a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. "You look beautiful," he said, taking her suitcase and loading it into the trunk. "You look like you belong in a magazine," Madison replied, then immediately regretted it. She wasn't supposed to be flustered by how gorgeous he looked. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Ethan asked, opening the passenger door for her. "Jury's still out," Madison said, but she was smiling. The drive to the Hamptons took just over 2 hours, and Madison found herself relaxing as they left the city behind. Ethan was an easy conversationalist, asking about her work, her family, her dreams. She learned that he'd wanted to be a teacher when he was young, that he played guitar badly but enthusiastically, and that he had a secret addiction to reality TV, cooking shows. "I can't help it," he said, grinning sheepishly. "There's something deeply satisfying about watching people panic over soufflés. I would never have pegged you as a reality TV guy," Madison said. "There's a lot you don't know about me," Ethan replied, and something in his tone made her look at him more closely. "Like what?" "Like the fact that I hate most of the social events I have to attend for work. Like the fact that I'd rather spend a Friday night reading a book than networking at some charity gala. Like the fact that I haven't had a real relationship in 3 years because every woman I meet seems more interested in my bank account than in me." Madison felt a pang of sympathy. "That must be lonely." "It is," Ethan said quietly, "which is why this arrangement works so well. You're not trying to impress me or change me. You're just you." Madison felt her heart clench. If only he knew how much she was already falling for him, how much she wanted this to be real. The Mitchell family estate was everything Madison had imagined, and more, set on 3 acres of pristine beachfront property. The house was a sprawling contemporary masterpiece with floor-to-ceiling windows, weathered cedar shingles, and a wraparound deck that seemed to float over the dunes. "Welcome to my grandmother's idea of a simple beach house," Ethan said, carrying their bags up the front steps. "Simple." Madison stared at the house in awe. "Ethan, this place is incredible. Wait until you see the inside." The interior was a study in understated luxury. Whitewashed walls, natural wood beams, and furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. The main living area opened directly onto the deck, with the Atlantic Ocean stretching endlessly beyond. "There are 5 bedrooms," Ethan said, setting down their bags. "You can have the master suite, or there's a guest room with an ocean view, if you prefer." Madison felt a flutter of panic. She'd been so focused on the public aspects of their fake relationship that she hadn't really considered the logistics of sharing a house for the weekend. "Where will you sleep?" she asked. "Wherever you're comfortable with," Ethan said. "This is your call, Madison. I know the contract specifies certain physical aspects of our arrangement, but I'm not going to push you into anything you're not ready for." Madison studied his face, looking for any sign of disappointment or manipulation, but all she saw was genuine concern for her comfort. "The guest room will be fine," she said finally. For now, Ethan repeated, and she caught the hint of a smile in his voice. They spent the afternoon exploring the property. Ethan showed her the private beach path, the outdoor kitchen where they could grill dinner, and the hot tub on the upper deck that overlooked the ocean. As the sun began to set, they found themselves on the beach, walking along the shoreline. "Can I ask you something?" Madison said, stopping to pick up a piece of sea glass. "Shoot. Why did you really choose me? I mean, you could have hired a professional actress or found someone who actually fits into your world. Why pick a struggling graphic designer from Brooklyn?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the waves. "Do you want the honest answer?" "Always. Because when I caught you at that party, it was the first time in years that I felt something real, not calculated, not strategic, just real." He turned to face her. "And when you kissed me back, I knew you felt it too." Madison's heart hammered against her ribs. "Ethan, I know this is supposed to be fake," he continued. "I know we have a contract, and I know you're doing this for the money, but I can't pretend that what I feel for you isn't real." Before Madison could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw Jessica's name. "I should take this," she said, grateful for the interruption. Her emotions were too close to the surface right now. "Madison." Jessica's voice was excited. "You will not believe what just happened. Derek Mitchell just asked me out." Madison's blood went cold. "What?" "Derek Mitchell, Ethan's cousin. He came by the office today asking about you, and somehow we ended up talking. And now we're having drinks tomorrow night." Jessica? No, Madison said, walking away from Ethan. You can't go out with him. Why not? He's gorgeous, he's rich, and he seemed really interested in me. Because he's bad news. Ethan says he's trying to destroy their family business. Madison, are you sure you're not being a little paranoid? Maybe there's more to the story. Jessica, please, just trust me on this. Derek Mitchell is not someone you want to get involved with. After Madison hung up, she found Ethan standing by the deck railing, his expression dark. Derek was asking about you, he asked. Apparently, Madison said, he came by her office today. Damn it. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I should have seen this coming. What do you mean? Derek's smart. If he's figured out that our relationship is fake, he could use that to convince my grandmother that I'm not serious about settling down. Madison felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ocean breeze. You think he suspects? I think my cousin is a lot more cunning than I gave him credit for. Ethan's jaw was tight. We need to be more convincing. More convincing, how? Ethan turned to face her, his eyes intense. We need to act like we're really together. Not just in public, but all the time. If Derek is watching us, we can't afford to let our guard down. Madison's pulse quickened. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we make this look real, starting now. Before Madison could ask what he meant, Ethan stepped closer and cupped her face in his hands. Madison, I need you to trust me. I do, she whispered, and realized she meant it. Then let's give anyone who might be watching a show they'll remember. This time, when Ethan kissed her, Madison didn't hesitate. She kissed him back with everything she had, pouring all of her confused feelings into the contact. His hands tangled in her hair, and she pressed closer, forgetting about contracts and fake relationships, and everything except the way he made her feel. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Was that convincing enough? Madison asked, her voice shaky. It's a start, Ethan said, his thumb tracing her cheek. But we're going to need to practice. That evening, they cooked dinner together in the outdoor kitchen. Ethan grilled fresh fish while Madison prepared a salad, and they worked with an easy rhythm that felt natural and comfortable. As they ate on the deck, watching the stars emerge over the ocean, Madison found herself forgetting that this was all supposed to be an act. Tell me about your family, Ethan said, refilling her wine glass. Not much to tell. My mom's a teacher in Queens. My dad died when I was 15. I have a younger sister who's in medical school at Columbia. Is that why you need the money? To help with her tuition? Madison hesitated. She'd been so focused on her own financial struggles that she hadn't really thought about why Ethan would care about her motivations. Partly, she admitted, Emma's brilliant, but med school is expensive, and my mom's been dealing with some health issues lately. Nothing serious, she added quickly. But the medical bills are adding up. What kind of health issues? Diabetes. She needs insulin, and even with insurance. Madison shrugged. It's expensive. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Is that why you took the job with the nonprofit? To help people? I could make more money doing corporate design work, but there's something satisfying about helping organizations that are actually making a difference, even if it means you can barely pay your own bills? Madison laughed. Even then, I know it's not practical, but I like knowing that my work matters. It's not impractical, Ethan said firmly. It's admirable. Most people wouldn't sacrifice their own financial security to help others. Most people don't have to choose between eating and paying rent. You know, I could help with that. Ethan said carefully. Beyond the contract, if you need help with your mother's medical bills or your sister's tuition. No, Madison said quickly. Thank you. But no, the contract is one thing, but I won't take charity. It wouldn't be charity. It would be me helping someone I care about. Madison felt her heart skip. Ethan, don't what? Don't say things like that. Don't make this harder than it already is. What if I want to make it harder? Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. What if I want this to be real? Madison pulled her hand away. It can't be real. We have a contract. You're paying me to pretend to be your girlfriend. Screw the contract. Ethan said, Madison, what do you feel when you look at me? I feel... Madison struggled for words. I feel like I'm drowning. In a good way or a bad way? I don't know yet. They sat in silence for a moment. The only sound the gentle crash of waves against the shore. I'm scared, Madison admitted finally. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of feeling something real for someone who's going to disappear from my life in 3 months. Ethan stood up and moved to the chair beside her. What if I don't want to disappear? What if you do? What if this is all just some elaborate fantasy for you? And when it's over, you'll go back to your real life. And I'll just be a memory. Madison, look at me. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. What we have isn't a fantasy. It's messy and complicated and probably completely insane, but it's real. Madison met his eyes, seeing her own uncertainty reflected there. How can you be sure? Because I've never felt this way about anyone before. Because every time I look at you, I forget about the contract and the money, and all the reasons this is supposed to be fake. Because I'm falling for you, and I don't know how to stop. Madison's breath caught. Ethan, I know it's crazy. I know the timing is terrible, and the circumstances are all wrong. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just business. Madison stood up abruptly, pacing to the deck railing. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Why is it so scary to feel something real? Because I can't afford to. Madison turned to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Because I'm already in too deep, and if I let myself believe this is real, it's going to destroy me when it ends. Who says it has to end? Reality says it has to end. We're from different worlds, Ethan. You live in a penthouse on the Upper East Side, and I can barely afford my studio apartment in Brooklyn. You went to Harvard, and I went to state school on a scholarship. This might feel real now, but eventually, you're going to realize that I don't fit into your life. Ethan stood and moved toward her. You think I care about any of that? I think you care about it more than you want to admit. You're wrong. Ethan reached for her hands. Madison, I've spent my entire adult life surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, connections, status. But you're different. You see me, not what I can give you. I'm here for the money, Madison reminded him. No. You're here because you're kind and compassionate, and you want to help an old woman find peace. The money is just what made it possible. Madison felt tears threatening. This is so messed up. The best things usually are. They stood there for a moment. The tension between them electric. Madison could feel herself wavering, her carefully constructed walls crumbling. I need some air, she said finally. We're outside, Ethan pointed out. I need some space, Madison corrected. I'm going for a walk. Madison, wait. But she was already heading for the beach stairs, needing to put some distance between herself and the man who was systematically destroying all her defenses. The beach was empty except for a few couples walking hand in hand along the waterline. Madison walked in the opposite direction, toward the more secluded part of the shoreline. The sound of the waves was soothing, and she felt some of her panic begin to subside. She was falling for Ethan Mitchell, hard, and despite all her logical arguments about why it was a bad idea, part of her wanted to believe that he was falling for her, too. But what if he wasn't? What if this was all just part of the performance for him? What if she was just another business transaction that he was particularly skilled at executing? Madison was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the figure approaching until a voice called out behind her, Madison Parker. She turned to find a tall blond man in expensive casual wear walking toward her. He was handsome in a calculated way, with perfect teeth and the kind of tan that came from tropical vacations, not beach walks. Do I know you? She asked, immediately on guard. Derek Mitchell, he said, extending his hand with a charming smile. Ethan's cousin. I was hoping I might run into you this weekend. Madison felt her blood run cold. What are you doing here? I have a house just down the beach. Saw the lights on at the family place and thought I'd come say hello. Derek's smile was friendly, but his eyes were calculating. How are you enjoying the Hamptons? It's lovely, Madison said carefully. I should probably get back. Ethan will be wondering where I am. Of course, but before you go, I wanted to ask you something. Derek moved closer, and Madison caught a whiff of expensive cologne. How much is my cousin paying you? Madison's heart stopped. Excuse me? Come on, Madison. We're both adults here. I know about the contract. I don't know what you're talking about. Derek laughed. I have to hand it to Ethan. You're very convincing. Much better than the usual socialites he dates. But I did my homework. Struggling graphic designer. Behind on rent. Sister in medical school. The financial incentive is obvious. Madison felt panic rising in her chest. You're wrong. Am I? Because I think my cousin is paying you to play his girlfriend to convince our grandmother that he's settled down. And I think you're very good at your job. Even if that were true, why would you care? Because I care about my family's business. And I don't think it should be turned over to someone who has to pay for love. Madison felt anger flower. You don't know anything about Ethan. I know he's desperate enough to hire a girlfriend. I know he's willing to lie to a dying woman. And I know that when the truth comes out, it's going to break Eleanor's heart. The truth? That this is all fake? That you're just another transaction in his portfolio. Derek's smile was cold. But don't worry. I'm not going to expose you yet. What do you want? I want you to end this. Walk away from the contract. Tell Ethan it's not working. And disappear from our lives. And if I don't, then I'll make sure Eleanor finds out exactly what kind of man her precious grandson really is. And I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of woman would take money to lie to a dying grandmother. Madison felt sick. You're despicable. I'm practical. You have 24 hours to decide. End this charade. Or I will. Derek walked away, leaving Madison standing alone on the beach with her world crashing down around her. She sank onto a piece of driftwood, her mind racing. Derek knew about the contract. He could destroy everything. Ethan's relationship with his grandmother, his chances of inheriting the business, and Madison's reputation, but if she walked away now, she'd be abandoning Ethan when he needed her most, and she'd be giving up the only man she'd ever truly fallen for. Madison buried her face in her hands, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. No matter what she chose, someone was going to get hurt. The question was whether she was brave enough to fight for what she wanted, or if she was going to let Derek Mitchell destroy the best thing that had ever happened to her. As she sat there listening to the waves, Madison made a decision that would change everything. She was going to fight. Madison sat on the beach for what felt like hours, the weight of Derek's ultimatum pressing down on her like a physical force. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, but their usual soothing effect was lost on her. Her mind raced through every possible scenario, each one more disastrous than the last. If she told Ethan about Derek's threat, he would try to protect her, but at what cost? If she walked away as Derek demanded, she'd be abandoning Ethan when he needed her most. And if she stayed and Derek followed through on his threat, Eleanor would learn the truth in the cruelest possible way. The sound of footsteps on the sand made her look up. Ethan was approaching, his expression worried in the moonlight. I was wondering where you'd gone, he said, settling beside her on the driftwood. Are you okay? Madison studied his face, memorizing every detail. The way his dark hair fell across his forehead, the concern in his green eyes, the gentle curve of his mouth. If Derek had his way, this might be one of the last quiet moments they'd have together. I'm fine, she said automatically, then caught herself. No, actually I'm not fine. I'm terrified. Of what? Of this? Of us? Of what happens next? Madison turned to face him fully. Ethan, what if this all blows up? What if Derek finds out about the contract and tells your grandmother? What if? Ethan said gently, reaching for her hand. Breathe. Derek doesn't know anything. And even if he did, we'll figure it out together. Madison almost laughed at the irony. If only he knew that Derek had already figured it out, that their carefully constructed facade was already crumbling. What if I'm not strong enough for this? She asked instead. Strong enough for what? For pretending? For lying to Eleanor? For pretending that what I feel for you isn't real? Ethan's eyes searched her face. What do you feel for me? Madison hesitated. After Derek's threat, every word felt dangerous. But looking into Ethan's eyes, she couldn't bring herself to lie. I feel like I'm falling, she said quietly. Like I'm tumbling through space with no idea where I'm going to land. What if you land with me? What if I don't? What if this is all just a beautiful dream, and I wake up alone? Ethan shifted closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. Madison, I can't promise you that this won't be complicated. I can't promise that it won't be messy or difficult or sometimes painful, but I can promise you that what I feel for you is real. How can you be sure? Because I've never felt this way about anyone before. Because when I look at you, I don't see a business arrangement or a contract. I see the woman I want to wake up next to every morning for the rest of my life. Madison's breath caught. Ethan, I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a few weeks. But I also know that I've never been more certain about anything in my life. Before Madison could respond, Ethan leaned in and kissed her. This time, there was no pretense, no performance for potential observers. This was pure emotion, raw and honest and devastating. Madison kissed him back with everything she had, pouring all of her fear and longing and love into the contact. Because she was in love with him, she realized completely, irrevocably, terrifyingly in love. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Come back to the house with me, Ethan said against her lips. Madison nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked back hand in hand, the weight of Derek's threat momentarily forgotten in the face of what was building between them. Back at the house, the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. They stood in the living room, suddenly uncertain, the easy rhythm of earlier in the evening replaced by something more intense. "Madison," Ethan said softly. "I know," she replied, though she wasn't sure what she was agreeing to. He moved closer, his hands framing her face. "If we do this, there's no going back. No pretending it's just part of the contract." "I don't want to pretend anymore," Madison said, and meant it. This time, when Ethan kissed her, it felt like coming home. Madison let herself get lost in the sensation, in the warmth of his hands, in the way he held her like she was precious and fragile and strong all at once. They made their way upstairs, pausing on the landing to kiss again, then again in the doorway of the master suite. Everything felt heightened, electric, like they were both balanced on the edge of something transformative. "Are you sure?" Ethan asked, his forehead resting against hers. "I'm sure," Madison said, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. They spent the night together, and it was everything Madison had dreamed it would be, and more. Ethan was gentle and passionate and attentive, and afterwards they lay tangled together in the moonlight, talking quietly about everything and nothing. "What happens now?" Madison asked, her head on his chest. "Now we figure out how to make this work," Ethan said, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "Really work, not just as a contract. And your grandmother? We'll tell her the truth eventually, when the time is right." Madison felt a pang of guilt. What if she's angry? What if she feels betrayed? She'll understand. She's wanted me to find love for years. The fact that I found it through unconventional means won't matter to her. Madison hoped he was right, but Derek's words echoed in her mind. What if Eleanor didn't understand? What if she saw the contract as proof that Ethan was incapable of genuine emotion? "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, "Just wondering if we're doing the right thing. Does this feel wrong to you?" Madison considered the question. Despite everything, the contract, the lies, the impossible circumstances, being with Ethan felt like the most right thing she'd ever done. "No," she said finally. "It feels perfect." "Then that's all that matters." They fell asleep, wrapped around each other, and for a few hours, Madison let herself believe that everything would work out, that love would be enough to overcome the obstacles in their path. She should have known better. Madison woke to the sound of her phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. She reached for it groggily, trying not to disturb Ethan, who was still sleeping peacefully beside her. 5 missed calls from Jessica, 3 from her mother, and a text from an unknown number. "Time's up. Check your email." Madison's blood went cold. She carefully extracted herself from Ethan's arms and padded to the bathroom, closing the door before opening her email. The message from Derek was brief but devastating. "Madison, since you chose not to take my generous offer, I've decided to move forward with Plan B. I've sent the attached photos and information to several gossip blogs, along with a copy of your contract with my cousin. The story should be live within the hour. I hope it was worth it. Derek." Madison scrolled down to see the attachments and felt her world collapse. There were photos of her and Ethan from the night before, walking on the beach, kissing on the deck, entering the house together. They looked intimate and genuine, which made the accompanying story all the more damaging. The blog post was titled, "The Hamptons' Hottest Fake Romance. Tech Heir Pays Struggling Artist to Play Girlfriend." It detailed their contract, Madison's financial situation, and Derek's insider perspective on the elaborate charade designed to manipulate a dying woman. Madison sat on the bathroom floor, staring at her phone in horror. It was over. Everything was over. Her phone buzzed with a call from Jessica. "Madison, where are you? There are reporters outside your apartment building. They're asking about some contract with Ethan Mitchell." "Oh no," Madison whispered. "What's going on?" "The story online makes it sound like you've been paid to fake a relationship." Madison couldn't find words. The bathroom door opened, and Ethan appeared, looking concerned. "Madison, what's wrong?" She held up her phone, showing him the blog post. She watched his face go through a series of emotions: confusion, understanding, and finally fury. "That bastard," he said quietly. "Jessica, I have to go," Madison said into the phone. "I'll call you back." "Madison, talk to me," Ethan said, sitting beside her on the bathroom floor. "We can fix this." "How?" Madison laughed bitterly. "How do we fix this? The entire world now knows that you paid me to pretend to love you. Your grandmother is going to see this and think you've been lying to her for months. We'll explain. We'll tell her the truth about how we feel now. Will she believe us? Or will she think this is just another performance?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, She'll believe us because it's true, will she? Because right now, I'm not sure I believe it myself. Ethan turned to face her fully. What do you mean? I mean, maybe Derek was right. Maybe this was all just a fantasy. Maybe what I thought was real was just me being really good at my job. You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. Madison stood up, pacing the small bathroom. Last night felt real. This morning feels like a nightmare. I don't know which one is true. Madison, look at me. Ethan's voice was firm. What happened between us last night had nothing to do with the contract. That was real. What we feel for each other is real. But how will anyone else know that? How will your grandmother know that? All she'll see is that you paid me to lie to her. Ethan's phone started buzzing. He glanced at it and cursed under his breath. Connor, he said, answering. Yeah, I saw it. How bad is it? Madison could hear Connor's voice through the phone, though she couldn't make out the words. Whatever he was saying, it wasn't good. Okay, Ethan said finally. I'll be back in the city in a few hours. Set up a meeting with the PR team. He hung up and turned back to Madison. It's everywhere. TMZ. Page 6. The business news sites. Connor says the office phones haven't stopped ringing. What about Eleanor? She doesn't know yet. Connor's trying to reach her housekeeper to make sure she doesn't see the news before we can talk to her. Madison felt tears threatening. This is my fault. I should have walked away when Derek told me to. Wait, what? Ethan's voice was sharp. When did you talk to Derek? Madison realized her mistake too late. Last night on the beach. He found me. And he knew about the contract. He told me to end things with you, or he'd expose everything. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't want to upset you. I thought I could handle it. Handle it how? By keeping secrets from me? I wasn't keeping secrets. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? Ethan's voice was rising. Madison, we're supposed to be in this together. How can I trust you if you're hiding things from me? Trust me? Madison felt her own anger flare. You hired me to lie to your grandmother. This whole relationship started with deception. Don't lecture me about trust. That's not fair. And you know it. Is it? Because right now, I'm wondering if anything about this has been fair. They stared at each other, the morning's tenderness replaced by hurt and anger. Madison felt the fragile connection they'd built crumbling around them. I need to go, she said quietly. Madison, don't do this. Don't run away. I'm not running away. I'm facing reality. This was always going to end badly. I was just too stupid to see it. It doesn't have to end badly. We can get through this. How? By continuing to lie. By pretending that a relationship that started with a contract can somehow become real. It already is real. Damn it. Ethan reached for her, but she stepped back. Maybe for you. But I can't tell the difference anymore between what's real and what's performance, and I don't think I ever could. Madison pushed past him and went to gather her things. Ethan followed, his expression desperate. Madison, please don't let Derek win. Don't let him destroy what we have. He's not destroying anything, Madison said, throwing clothes into her suitcase. He's just exposing what was always there. This was always fake, Ethan. I was just too naive to remember that. You don't mean that. I do mean it. Last night was beautiful, but it was also a lie. We were both playing roles, and we got so lost in the performance that we forgot it wasn't real. Look at me and tell me last night was fake, Ethan said quietly. Madison met his eyes, and for a moment, her resolve wavered. She could see the pain there, the genuine emotion, but then she remembered the blog post, the photos, the humiliation waiting for her back in the city. It was fake, she said, hating herself for the lie. Ethan's face went blank. If that's what you believe, then there's nothing more to say. I'm sorry, Madison whispered. So am I, Ethan replied. The drive back to the city was silent, except for the radio playing softly in the background. Madison stared out the window, watching the Hamptons houses give way to highways, and then to the familiar skyline of Manhattan. Each mile felt like a step further away from the fantasy she'd allowed herself to believe. When they reached her building, Ethan didn't get out to help with her suitcase. The contract is void, he said quietly. I'll have the final payment transferred to your account. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You held up your end of the bargain. Madison wanted to argue, to tell him she didn't want his money, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she grabbed her suitcase and got out of the car. Madison, Ethan called through the open window. She turned back, hope flickering in her chest. Take care of yourself, he said simply, and then he was gone. Leaving Madison standing on the sidewalk with her suitcase and her shattered heart. Inside her apartment, Hemingway greeted her with typical feline indifference. The space felt smaller than ever, cramped and dim after the expansive luxury of the Hamptons house. Madison sank onto her couch and finally allowed herself to cry. She cried for the relationship that had felt so real but was built on such shaky foundations. She cried for Eleanor, who would now see her grandson as someone capable of elaborate deception. She cried for Ethan, who would lose both his grandmother's trust and the business she'd built, but mostly, she cried for herself, for being foolish enough to believe that a man like Ethan Mitchell could genuinely fall for a woman like her, for thinking that love could overcome the circumstances of their meeting, for falling so completely. For someone who was ultimately just out of her league, her phone buzzed with notifications, missed calls from reporters, text messages from friends who'd seen the news, emails from strangers, offering everything from sympathy to book deals. She turned it off and curled up on her couch, pulling a blanket over her head. Outside, she could hear the city continuing its relentless pace. People were going about their lives, unaware that her world had just completely fallen apart. Madison closed her eyes and tried to imagine a future where this didn't hurt so much, where she could think about Ethan without feeling like someone was squeezing her heart with both hands, where she could trust her own feelings again. But as she drifted off to sleep on her couch, all she could think about was the way Ethan had looked at her that morning, like she was breaking his heart. Because maybe, just maybe, what they'd had was real after all. Eleanor Mitchell sat in her sitting room, the morning newspaper folded neatly on her lap. She'd been awake since dawn, not because of the medication schedule that regulated her days, but because she'd received a call from her housekeeper about troubling news regarding Ethan. She'd read the blog post twice, studied the photos, and reviewed the contract that had somehow made its way into public view. Now she sat quietly, processing what she'd learned. Her grandson had hired a girlfriend. The woman she'd grown fond of over the past few weeks was being paid to pretend to love him. The relationship she'd encouraged was built on a business arrangement, but as Eleanor looked at the photos from the night before, she saw something the blog post had missed. The way Ethan looked at Madison wasn't the look of a man engaged in a business transaction. It was the look of a man in love. And the way Madison looked at him, that wasn't the expression of a woman performing a role. That was the face of someone whose heart was breaking. Eleanor picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. Mrs. Chen, I need you to arrange a meeting. 2 meetings, actually, and I'll need the car. If her grandson thought he could keep the truth from her, he was about to learn otherwise. Eleanor Mitchell hadn't built a business empire by avoiding difficult conversations, and she certainly wasn't going to start now. The final act of this drama was about to begin, and Eleanor intended to direct it herself. Because sometimes the people you love most need someone to fight for them, even when they don't know how to fight for themselves. Especially then, 3 days after the story broke, Madison's life had become a waking nightmare. She'd stopped leaving her apartment after the second day, when a particularly aggressive photographer had followed her to the grocery store, shouting questions about whether she was shopping for her next sugar daddy. The building superintendent had to escort her back inside while she fought back tears of humiliation. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Reporters wanted quotes. Tabloids wanted exclusive interviews, and talk shows wanted her to appear as the woman who scammed New York's most eligible bachelor. She'd turned it all down, but the requests kept coming. Jessica had been her lifeline, bringing groceries and moral support while fielding calls from producers who'd somehow gotten Madison's number. Even her mother had called, worried sick after seeing the news coverage. I don't understand why you're hiding, Jessica said, unpacking Thai food containers on Madison's coffee table. This could be your 15 minutes of fame. You could write a book, do interviews, maybe even get a reality show. I don't want fame, Madison said, curled up on her couch in the same pajamas she'd been wearing for 2 days. I want to disappear. But why? So what if you signed a contract? You still fell for him, right? That part was real. Madison had told Jessica everything the night she'd returned from the Hamptons. The contract, the fake relationship, the way she'd fallen for Ethan despite herself, and the devastating morning when it all fell apart. Was it real? Madison asked. Or was I just really good at convincing myself it was? Madison, honey, you've been crying for 3 days. You don't cry like that over a business arrangement. I cry like that over humiliation, over stupidity, over believing that someone like Ethan Mitchell could actually fall for someone like me. Jessica sat beside her on the couch. What if he did? He didn't. If he had, he would have fought for us. He would have called or texted or shown up here, demanding we work things out. Instead, he just let me go. Maybe he's giving you space. Maybe he's relieved it's over. Before Jessica could respond, The building's buzzer rang. Madison groaned. If that's another reporter, I'm moving to Canada. Jessica went to the intercom. Yes? This is Mrs. Chen, Mrs. Mitchell's driver. She'd like to speak with Miss Parker. Madison's blood went cold. Eleanor was here. I can't, Madison said, panic rising in her chest. I can't face her, Jess. Not after everything. You have to, Jessica said gently. She came all the way to Brooklyn. The least you can do is hear what she has to say. Madison looked down at her pajamas, her unwashed hair, her general state of disaster. I look terrible. You look human. She'll understand. 5 minutes later, Eleanor Mitchell sat in Madison's tiny living room, looking completely out of place but somehow perfectly at home. She'd declined tea and coffee and now sat studying Madison with those sharp blue eyes. You look terrible, dear, Eleanor said bluntly. I feel terrible, Madison replied, too exhausted to pretend otherwise. Good. That means you care. Madison blinked. I'm sorry. You care about my grandson. If this was all just business to you, you'd be out there doing interviews, capitalizing on the publicity. Instead, you're hiding in your apartment, looking like your heart's been broken. Mrs. Mitchell Eleanor, we're past formalities now, don't you think? Eleanor leaned forward. I've read the contract, Madison. Very thorough, very professional, also very revealing. I know what you must think of me. Do you? Because I think you're a young woman who agreed to help a man she barely knew give comfort to his dying grandmother. I think you're someone who put aside her own pride to help someone in need. Madison felt tears threatening. I lied to you. Did you? When you told me Ethan was thoughtful and kind, was that a lie? When you said he worked 18-hour days but still called me every Sunday, was that fabricated? No, but when you said he was the kind of man who would move heaven and earth for the people he loves, were you reading from a script? No, Madison whispered. Then you didn't lie to me. You told me the truth about who my grandson is, even if the circumstances of how you knew him were unconventional. Madison stared at her. You're not angry. Oh, I'm furious, Eleanor said matter-of-factly. I'm furious that my grandson felt he had to hire someone to convince me he was capable of love. I'm furious that he thought I cared more about his relationship status than his happiness. And I'm absolutely livid that Derek managed to turn what should have been a beautiful love story into a public spectacle. It wasn't a love story, Madison said quietly. It was a business arrangement that got out of hand, was it? Eleanor pulled out her phone and showed Madison a photo. It was one of the paparazzi shots from the Hamptons. Madison and Ethan kissing on the beach, completely lost in each other. This is not the kiss of two people fulfilling a contract, Eleanor said. This is the kiss of two people who are desperately in love and terrified to admit it. Madison looked at the photo, seeing herself and Ethan as if for the first time. Eleanor was right. There was nothing performative about the way they held each other. Nothing calculated about the emotion on their faces. It doesn't matter now, Madison said. It's over. Is it? Because my grandson has been calling me every day for the past 3 days, not to discuss business or the media coverage, but to ask if I've heard from you. He's worried sick. Madison's heart lurched. He's worried about the business implications. No, there. He's worried about you. About whether you're okay, whether you're safe, whether you hate him for how everything turned out. I don't hate him, Madison said softly. But you're not talking to him. What would be the point? We said terrible things to each other. We hurt each other, and now the whole world knows our relationship was fake. Was it fake on Saturday night? Eleanor asked pointedly. Madison felt heat flood her cheeks. How did you? I have eyes, dear, and I've been alive long enough to recognize real intimacy when I see it. Eleanor's voice softened. What happened between you and Ethan that night wasn't about any contract. That was real love, real connection, real vulnerability. Then why did we fall apart so quickly? Because you're both scared. You're scared of being hurt, and he's scared of not being enough. So when things got difficult, you both defaulted to protecting yourselves instead of protecting each other. Madison wiped her eyes. I told him what we had was fake. I looked him in the eye and lied to him because I was scared. And he let you walk away because he was scared, too. You both made mistakes, Madison. The question is whether you're going to let those mistakes define your future. I don't know how to fix this. You start by telling the truth, the real truth, not the version you think will protect you. What if he doesn't want to hear it? Then you'll know you tried. But Madison, I've watched my grandson for 31 years. I've seen him date many women, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. If you don't fight for this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Eleanor stood to leave, then paused. I'm having a small gathering tomorrow evening. Just family and a few close friends. I'd like you to be there. I can't, after everything that's happened. The publicity. The publicity is exactly why you need to be there. Show the world that you're not ashamed of loving my grandson. Show them that what you have is real, regardless of how it started. After Eleanor left, Madison sat alone in her apartment, staring at the photo on her phone. She saw what Eleanor had seen. Two people completely lost in each other. Oblivious to everything except their connection, she thought about the past few weeks, about all the moments that had felt real. The way Ethan had looked at her when she described what she saw in him, the way he'd held her when she'd been nervous about meeting Eleanor, the way he'd made love to her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Had all of that been an act? Or had they both been so caught up in playing roles that they'd forgotten they were falling for each other for real? Madison looked around her apartment, at the bills piled on her kitchen counter, at the rejection letters from potential clients, at the evidence of a life that was barely holding together. This was her reality. But for a few weeks, she'd experienced something different. She'd felt cherished, valued, loved. Maybe it was time to fight for that feeling. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan sat in his office, staring at his computer screen. The PR team had managed to contain some of the damage, but the story was still trending on social media. His business partners were concerned about the company's reputation, and he'd spent the morning in meetings with lawyers and publicists. But all he could think about was Madison. Connor knocked on his door. The Times wants a statement. How do you want to handle this? I don't know, Ethan said honestly. What do you say when you've made the biggest mistake of your life? Which mistake? Hiring a fake girlfriend or letting the real one walk away? Ethan looked up sharply. What? Come on, man. I've known you for 15 years. I've never seen you like this over a woman. You're in love with her. It doesn't matter now. She made it clear that everything between us was fake. And you believed her? Why wouldn't I? Connor sat down across from him. Because I was there that night at your party. I saw the way you looked at each other. That wasn't acting, Ethan. That was two people having a moment that led to a 3-month charade. A charade that turned into something real. Look, I don't know much about love, but I know you. And the man I've watched for the past 3 days isn't heartbroken over a failed business arrangement. He's destroyed over losing the woman he loves. Ethan stared out his office window at the city below. She doesn't trust me. When Derek threatened her, she didn't tell me. She tried to handle it alone. She was protecting you. She was protecting herself. She didn't believe that I would fight for her. Did you? When she said it was all fake, did you fight for her? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. No, I let her go. Why? Because I was hurt, because I was scared that maybe she was right, that maybe I had been paying for something I thought was real. And now? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Now I know I was an idiot. Madison Parker is the best thing that ever happened to me, and I let her walk away because I was too proud to fight for her. Connor smiled. So, what are you going to do about it? Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang. Eleanor's name appeared on the screen. Grandma Ellie, he answered. Ethan, darling, I need you to come to the house this evening, 7, and wear something nice. Why? Because I'm having a party, and there's someone I want you to see. Grandma, I'm not really in the mood for. It wasn't a request. Ethan, be there. The line went dead. Ethan looked at Connor, who was grinning. Your grandmother's up to something, Connor said. She's always up to something. The question is what? That evening, Madison stood outside Eleanor's townhouse, her hands shaking as she smoothed down her dress. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on a simple black dress that made her feel confident and beautiful. Jessica had driven her into the city, offering moral support and last-minute pep talks. You look gorgeous, Jessica said, and more importantly, you look like yourself again. I feel like I'm about to throw up. That's a good sign. It means you care. Madison took a deep breath and walked up the front steps. Mrs. Chen answered the door with a warm smile. Miss Parker, how lovely to see you. Mrs. Mitchell is in the sitting room with her guests. Madison entered the elegant room and found Eleanor surrounded by about a dozen people. Some she recognized from photos as business associates and family friends. Others she'd never seen before. The conversation was animated and warm, and Madison felt some of her tension ease. Madison, darling, Eleanor said, approaching with a glass of champagne. I'm so glad you came. Let me introduce you to everyone. For the next hour, Madison mingled with Eleanor's guests, surprised by how welcoming everyone was. No one mentioned the contract or the media coverage. Instead, they asked about her work, her art, her life. She found herself relaxing, even enjoying herself. Madison. She turned at the sound of her name and found herself face to face with Derek Mitchell. He looked as polished as ever, but there was something different in his expression. Uncertainty, maybe even regret. "Derek," she said coolly, "I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't expect to be invited," he admitted. But Eleanor insisted. She said we needed to talk. "I don't think we have anything to say to each other." "Actually, we do." Derek glanced around the room, then back at her. "I owe you an apology." Madison blinked. "Excuse me? I was wrong about you. About Ethan. About everything. I thought I was protecting the family business, but I was really just protecting my own interests. Why are you telling me this?" Because Eleanor made me realize something. She showed me the photos from that night and asked me a question. "Does this look like a woman who's faking her emotions?" And I had to admit, no, it didn't. Madison felt her chest tighten. "Derek, I was jealous," he continued. "Jealous of Ethan. Jealous of what you two had. I've never had anyone look at me the way you look at him. So, I convinced myself it was all fake, because if it was real, it meant I was the problem. I don't know what to say. Say you'll forgive me. Say you'll give my cousin another chance. Because, Madison, I may have exposed your contract, but I also saw something else in those photos. I saw two people who are desperately in love with each other." Before Madison could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. Eleanor was greeting someone, and Madison's heart stopped when she saw who it was. Ethan stood in the doorway, looking devastatingly handsome in a navy suit. His eyes swept the room and stopped when they found her. For a moment, neither of them moved. "I should go," Derek said quietly. "But Madison, what you and Ethan have is real. Don't let pride or fear convince you otherwise." Eleanor clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. "If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment. As you all know, the past week has been rather eventful for our family. There have been stories in the press, speculation about my grandson's relationship, and a great deal of confusion about what's real and what's not." Madison felt the blood drain from her face. What was Eleanor doing? "I wanted to set the record straight," Eleanor continued. "Yes, my grandson hired Madison to be his girlfriend. Yes, there was a contract involved. But what the press failed to understand is that sometimes the most real things in life begin in the most unexpected ways." She looked directly at Madison and Ethan. "I've had the privilege of watching these two young people fall in love over the past few weeks. I've seen them struggle with their feelings, doubt themselves, and ultimately hurt each other because they were too afraid to trust what they felt." Madison's eyes filled with tears. Eleanor was giving them permission to be vulnerable, to be real, to stop hiding behind the contract and the pretense. "Love is not always convenient," Eleanor said. "It's not always logical. Sometimes it comes disguised as something else entirely. But when it's real, when it's true, it transforms everything it touches." She paused, her eyes twinkling. "Which is why I'm not leaving my business to Derek after all. I'm leaving it to Ethan and Madison, jointly, because I believe they'll protect what I've built, and they'll do it together." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Madison stared at Eleanor in shock. "Furthermore," Eleanor continued, "I'm announcing my engagement to Henry Worthington." She gestured to a distinguished gentleman in his 70s who was beaming at her. "We're getting married next month, and I expect all of you to be there." The room exploded into congratulations and laughter. In the chaos, Madison found herself moving toward Ethan. Drawn by some invisible force, they met in the middle of the room, both uncertain, both hopeful. "Hi," Ethan said softly. "Hi," Madison replied. "I've been thinking about what you said," Ethan continued, "about everything being fake, and I realized something." "What?" "Even if it started as fake, it stopped being fake the moment I caught you at that party. Every moment after that, every feeling, every touch, every kiss that was real. And I'm sorry it took me 3 days to realize that." Madison felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm sorry too. I'm sorry I said it was fake when I knew it wasn't. I'm sorry I didn't trust you enough to tell you about Derek. I'm sorry I ran away when things got complicated. I'm sorry I let you run," Ethan said, reaching up to wipe her tears. "I should have fought for you. I should have shown up at your door and refused to leave until you listened to me. What would you have said? That I love you, that I've been in love with you since the moment you fell into my arms, that the best decision I ever made was hiring you to be my fake girlfriend because it led me to the real love of my life." Madison's breath caught. "Ethan, I love you. Madison Parker, not because of any contract, not because of any arrangement, but because you're brave and kind and talented, and you make me want to be a better man. I love you because you see me, really see me, not what I can give you or what I represent. I love you too, Madison whispered. I love you so much it terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together, Ethan said, pulling her into his arms. Let's figure this out as we go. What about the media? What about the scandal? Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them write whatever they want. The only opinion that matters to me is yours. Madison looked around the room at Eleanor's guests, all of whom were watching them with warm smiles. She saw Eleanor herself, radiant with happiness, nodding encouragingly. Are you sure about this? Madison asked. About us? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Ethan said. The question is, are you willing to take a chance on us? Are you willing to trust that what we have is real? Madison thought about the past week, about the pain and the doubt and the fear. She thought about the contract that had brought them together and the love that had grown between them. She thought about Eleanor's words. Sometimes the best things in life come disguised as the riskiest. Yes, she said finally, I'm willing. This time, when Ethan kissed her, it felt like coming home. It felt like the beginning of something beautiful and real and lasting. Around them, the room erupted in applause and cheers, but Madison barely heard it. All she could focus on was the man in her arms, the man who had hired her to fake a relationship and instead given her the real thing. The man who had shown her that love could be found in the most unexpected places if you were brave enough to reach for it. As they broke apart, both laughing and crying, Eleanor raised her champagne glass. To love, she said, her voice carrying across the room, in all its forms, in all its disguises, in all its beautiful, messy, complicated glory. To love, the room echoed. Madison looked at Ethan, seeing her future in his eyes. A future that would be complicated and challenging and absolutely worth fighting for. So, she said, smiling through her tears, what do we do now? Now, Ethan said, spinning her around, we tear up the contract and write our own story. What kind of story? The kind that lasts forever, Ethan said, and kissed her again. 6 months later, Madison stood in the same penthouse where she'd first met Ethan, but this time, she belonged there. The space had been transformed for their engagement party, filled with friends and family, and the people who mattered most to them. Jessica was there with her new boyfriend, not Derek, thankfully, but a nice accountant from her office. Madison's mother and sister had flown in from Queens, both glowing with happiness for her. Even Hemingway had made the trip, currently being spoiled by Eleanor's new husband, Henry. Penny for your thoughts, Ethan said, appearing at her side with 2 glasses of champagne. Just thinking about how crazy this all is, Madison said, accepting the glass. A year ago, I was struggling to pay my rent. Now, I'm planning a wedding and co-running a business empire. Any regrets? Madison looked around the room at their friends and family, at the life they'd built together. Just one. Ethan's expression grew concerned. What's that? I regret that it took a fake relationship to find real love, Madison said, then smiled. But I don't regret falling for you. Good, Ethan said, pulling her close, because I have a confession to make. What? I never actually needed a fake girlfriend. I made up the whole thing about Eleanor threatening to change her will. Madison stared at him. What? I mean, she did want me to settle down, but she never threatened to disinherit me. I couldn't stop thinking about you after that party. So I made up an excuse to see you again. Ethan Mitchell, Madison said, trying to look stern but failing. Are you telling me this entire thing was an elaborate scheme to ask me out? Maybe, Ethan said, grinning. Is it working? Madison laughed, the sound bright and free. It worked 6 months ago. It's definitely working now. Good, Ethan said, because I have one more confession. What now? I'm never letting you go, he said, and kissed her under the lights of the city they'd both made their home. Around them, their friends and family cheered, but Madison barely heard them. She was too busy falling in love with her fake boyfriend all over again. Some stories, she thought, are worth the wait. Even if they start with a contract, the end